You guys need to admit everybody.
There we can start admitting and then.
Do you guys want to do that, or you want me to do that? Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I can start clicking.
Just do admit all.
Morning, everyone. We're gonna wait a couple minutes for people to trickle in, and then we'll go ahead and begin with the focus group, probably around 10:02. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear fine.
Yeah,
Okay,
you're
perfect.
coming in great.
Perfect, thank you. So we can go ahead and begin. And thank you, everyone, for joining the Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD, our 11A Housing Accessibility Focus Group meeting that's taking place during the 2025 Intervening Code Adoption Cycle. Just so you are aware, this meeting is being recorded. My name is Tyler Mayo, and I am the Title 24 Regulations Manager for HCD's Division of Codes and Standards. These focus group meetings are important to the regulatory process, and it will help inform HCD on our changes to the regulations impacting the current code cycle. Next slide, please. We are currently in the pre-rulemaking activity portion of the intervening cycle. During this part of the rulemaking process, state agencies such as HCD gather input from all stakeholders on different aspects of the code. Today's topic is the supplement to the 2025 California Building Code, Chapter 11A, Housing Accessibility, with a direct focus on residential occupancies. There will be 4 topics of discussion covered during today's focus group, starting with HCD's State Housing Law Program introductions, the meeting purpose and format, the ground rules, and lastly, we will cover the draft proposals for Chapter 11A. Today's meeting will focus on the current code adoption cycle and specific sections of the code. It will focus on residential occupancies and will include a time limit for all public comments. When providing comment, please wait for the appropriate agenda item to speak on behalf of your comment. More information about the commenting process will be provided in a moment. Next slide, please. For our introductions, in attendance today on behalf of HCD is our Housing Regulations Section Chief, Jenna Klein, myself, Tyler Mayo, I'm the Title 24 Regulations Manager, John Murray, he is our Regulations Analyst. John will be assisting with the facilitation of this meeting, and our Associate Construction Analyst and Chapter 11A Subject Matter Expert, Veronica Turdian. Veronica will be presenting the proposed amendments in items 1 through 4. Next slide, please. The agenda, which was posted on June 11th, outlines the format for today's focus group. A link to the agenda is in the chat and can be emailed to you. If you would like a copy of the agenda, please email title24@hcd.ca.gov. A member of our team will be monitoring our inbox throughout this focus group meeting. For informational purposes, this is a focus group meeting, not a working group. HCD will be focused on the 4 proposed items that will be shared today, and we ask that you please keep your comments focused on those items as they come up in the agenda. All other general comments can be emailed to the title24@hcd.ca.gov email address, and HCD will review and take your input into consideration. Next slide, please. We will now review the ground rules for the focus group. There will be a 3-minute time limit. We request that you stay muted unless your name is called. This applies to those in attendance on Zoom or those who have called into the meeting. We request that you keep all comments and discussion related to the agenda items. If you need technical assistance, please contact our email at title24.hcd.ca.gov. Next slide, please. Please note that the chat is unmonitored and will not be available after the focus group. The chat cannot be seen by people on the phone. Therefore, if you have a comment, please raise your hand or wait for the phone line to open. Next slide, please. Now that we've covered the ground rules for the focus group, I'll turn things over to John Murray, who will take us through the comment and raised hand process.
Good morning, everyone. I'll be covering the raise hand function and how phone participants can mute and unmute. For participants on this Zoom, please use the raise your hand feature, which can be found under the reactions tab at the bottom of the Zoom screen. Click on the hand icon. You will see your name and picture, if applicable, is outlined in yellow. HCD will create a list of commenters in order of hands raised and will call on participants for comment. I will lower your hand when I call you. Next slide, please. When I call on you, please state your name, your organization, and note which item you are commenting on. You will have 3 minutes to comment. Once your 3 minutes is up, you will hear a timer beeping sound, and we will move on to the next participant. As stated, we may mute you after 3 minutes. After commenting, please mute yourself by clicking on the microphone icon at the bottom left of your screen. For those calling in, once we have completed the list of comments on Zoom, I will ask if there are any callers who would like to comment. In order to comment, please unmute yourself by hitting *6. With that said, I will turn things over to Veronica.
Good morning, everyone. This is Veronica Turdian with HCD. Before I go into the details of item 1, I want just to give you a brief overview of the discussion topics for today's meeting. As you know, California Building Code Chapter 11A applies to cover multifamily dwellings. Those are described in Section 1102A.1 of the code and are also defined in Chapter 2 of the California Building Code. The regulations include, but are not limited to, private apartment buildings with 3 or more dwelling units, condominiums with 4 or more dwelling units, and newly constructed public housing that's actually now DSA. Next slide, please. Oh, actually, just staying one. HCD has prepared draft regulation for updating the supplement to the 2025 California Building Code. The proposed changes to Chapter 11A are more clarification purposes. So this is kind of the overall, and then we're gonna go item by item. So in item 1, clarifies that additions to cover multifamily dwellings must comply with 11A. And probably you remember we had actually this item on the last triennial. Item 2 clarifies that single-story townhouses must comply with Chapter 11A. The third item, we're adding a new section to 11A that clarifies that accessibility provisions for electric vehicle charging spaces when serving multi-family buildings. And 4, it's also a clarification that playgrounds serving covered multifamily dwellings need to comply with Chapter 11A. Bob Bramer, he has his hand up.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you, Bob.
Okay, great. Hi, Veronica. This is Bob Bramer with the California Building Industry Association and the California Apartment Association. We're supporting all 4 of these changes. I think they help clarify things that we kind of already knew, but it's great to see it put in there, particularly the EV charging stuff. Lastly, I noticed in the agenda, you mentioned for item 4 that you'd be complying with the playground measures in Chapter 11A. Aren't those in Chapter 11B?
So and I will explain when I go to item 4.
Yeah,
But
sorry for jumping ahead.
Oh, no, it's fine. The playgrounds are only the ones that are just for the multifamily dwelling. So, nobody from the outside. It's not going to be like a common playground where anybody can walk in. It's just for them and for the guests. It's like, if they have a pool and it's only for the people that are in that community and it's not for anybody that's just walking in.
Yeah, great. We're going to support all 4 of these. Thank you.
Okay. So before I go into everything, and I love Bob Raymer, so I know his hand was up, so I wanted him to be able to comment. Before I go over everything, under each item listed, HCD added the express term language. The express terms contain the existing California language being modified. As you know, the strikeout text represents the text we want to repeal, and then whatever we underline is what HCD proposes to add to the code language. Also, if you would like to view the printed code language from the ICC, you can go to www.iccsafe.org. On the upper right corner, there is a Codes tab. The Codes tab will display the Search Digital Code bar, where you need to type the part that you would like to view. In our case, you have to click on 2025 California Building Code. Open the iCode book and scroll down to Chapter 10 to view the section number. With that said, I will now go into item 1 that's actually on your screen. Sorry, my throat got dry. So I will read item 1 for the people over the phone. So 1101A.1 scope. The application and authority of this chapter are identified and referenced in section 1.8.2.1.2 and 1102A for the Department of Housing and Community Development. Applicable sections are identified in the matrix adoption tables of this code under the abbreviation HCD 1-AC. 1. All newly constructed covered multifamily dwellings. 2. New common use area serving existing covered multifamily dwellings. 3, additions to existing buildings where the addition alone meets the definition of a covered multifamily dwelling. So there is no charge to existing text in the paragraph that I just read. Now we are proposing to add as number 4, additions to existing buildings containing covered multifamily dwellings. And then the section continues. So number 4 will be number 5. New common use area serving new covered multifamily dwellings. And number 5 will be number 6, where any new portion of the building's exterior is preserved, but the interior of the building is removed, including all structural portions of floor and ceilings. The building is considered a new building for determining the application of this chapter, and there is no change to existing California amendment. Now the reasoning. HCD proposes to add the new item 4 to clarify that additions to existing covered multifamily dwellings must comply with Chapter 11A. As I mentioned, this item was presenting to the Commission during the last triennial code cycle. However, the Commission couldn't identify the difference between the requirements in item 3 and item 4. And I had some technical issues and I wasn't able to explain. So it was sent back to further study. And we decided to withdraw and rework the language so then it's a little bit more clear. So as you know, item 3 requires addition to existing buildings. So the building can be built in, I don't know, 1970 something. And the addition alone meets the definition of covered multifamily dwellings. So then the addition will have to comply with Chapter 11A. And what we're adding right now, it says addition to existing buildings containing multifamily dwellings. So we're adding something to something that's already multifamily dwelling, so to 3 apartments or to 4 condos. Once you add it, then of course, the addition will have to comply with 11A. So I'm really hoping that this time, because I'm getting a lot of questions from stakeholders that there is a confusion as whether an addition to a building that's already meets the definition of a covered multifamily dwelling has to or doesn't have to comply with 11A. John, you can open the floor for comments.
Thank you. We'll now open this item for comment. As a reminder, there's a 3-minute time limit on comments. Once I call you, please state your name and any organization you are representing. Once your 3 minutes is up, you'll hear a beeping sound and we will move on to the next commenter. And I am seeing Susan. Oh,
hello, my name is Susan Moe. I'm with Access Compliance Consulting. And I think I get what you're saying. So basically, if you've got an existing building, and item number 3, if you've got an existing building that was constructed prior to March 13th, 1991, it's not covered multifamily dwellings, you're going to add 3 or more apartments to it, or let's say it's a condominium, you're going to add 4 more apartments, then it would have to comply with 11A. As opposed to item number 4, if you've already got covered multifamily dwellings, let's say you've got an apartment building with 10 apartments, but you're only going to add 1 more apartment. That 1 more apartment is going to have to comply because you're adding an apartment to what's already a covered multifamily dwelling. Correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
Oh, yeah, I absolutely support that. I think it's just a matter of really parsing it and really reading through the language. And yeah, I think that's a great addition.
Thank you, Susan. I'm actually really happy you're here. I love your expertise. Yes, we get actually a lot of emails because of all the additions. I'm sorry, this is Veronica Turdin. All the additions with ADUs we do have a lot of questions. Sometimes I used to get 3 to 4 questions from architects or building officials regarding this item. So I think it's very important to have it in.
John Caparelli.
Hi, good morning. Thank you. I'm John Caparelli, a building official for the city of Santa Clarita and also a member of the CalBO Access Code Committee. I would also like to say that I support this change. Something that I think is misunderstood as well is the definition of addition in California Building Code Chapter 2, and as well as the way additions are treated in the FHA design manual. An addition is defined as a added floor area. It is not considered an alteration. If I have existing floor area that I am converting, that is not considered an addition. And I just want to make sure that that is still the intent here. I know that when I look at the matrix adoption table for Chapter 2 of the California Building Code, I see that HCD AC adopts the entire chapter. And so I assume the definition of addition in California Building Code Chapter 2 is adopted by HCD AC. And if so, then situations where you have an existing multifamily building built prior to March 13th, 1991, and so therefore it is not covered. If I was to convert several garages to dwellings, that would not be considered an addition in this context. And I see Veronica nodding, so okay, so very good. I just wanted to put that out there and make sure that this change is that we're not going to be changing what we consider to be an addition by definition. To be an addition, it has to be added floor area to the building. So if so, then I agree with Sue. I support this change as well.
Go ahead, Veronica.
Thank you. I'm going to be nice and lower my hand. And this is Veronica. Yes, actually, every time somebody sends an email, I always let them know. And I confirm with HUD also that when we convert something, unless we're not taking all the walls apart and we start doing a lot of structural work, because then, if you just leave the platform and then you start rebuilding the walls, then you will be considered a new building. But if you convert the garage into 2 apartments, or I don't know, depends on how huge the garage is, then obviously if it was built before 1991, you wouldn't have to comply. But if you're adding something to the house, to one house, if you add another, I don't know, 3 units or 4, and you have to rent them out, then yes, the units that you're building will have to. Thank you, John. And I'm really glad you're here also.
We do not appear to have any other commenters. So this concludes item number 1. Next slide, please.
Good morning, everyone. Veronica again. Let's go into item number 2. So section 2, section 1102A.1 were required. And again, I would like to read the ET language for the people that are over the phone. Can you move to the next? No, good. Okay. Newly constructed covered multifamily dwellings as defined in this chapter include but are not limited to the following: apartment buildings with 3 or more dwelling units, including timeshare apartments, not considered a place of public accommodation, or transit lodging as defined in the Health and Safety Code, section 19955A and chapter 2 of the California Building Code. 2, condominiums with 4 or more dwelling units, including timeshare condominiums, not considered a place of public accommodation or transient lodging as defined in the Health and Safety Code, section 19958 and chapter 2 of the California Building Code. So we're planning on adding number 3 that clarifies that single-story townhouses with 3 or more attached dwelling units classified as apartments, or with 4 or more attached dwelling units classified as condominiums. That's the new item. And then number 4 will be lodging houses as defined in chapter 2 of the California Building Code, used as a reference with more than 3 but not more than 5 guest rooms. So there was some confusion expressed both by enforcing and design professionals as whether a group of single-story residential townhouses must comply with 11A. A group of townhouses are subject to the accessibility requirements of Chapter 11A if they meet the definition of covered multifamily dwellings based on their ownership structure and unit count. And that will be consistent with Federal Fair Housing Act. Chapter 11A applies to newly constructed multifamily dwellings, specifically apartment buildings with 3 or more dwelling units, or condominiums with 4 or more dwelling units, intended for private ownership or for rental. Townhouses, typically, they're characterized by individual units sharing common walls, and often built in a row, and can be classified either as apartments or as condominiums, depends on how the ownership is legally constructed under units. So they can be owned or they can be rented as individually owned. If the townhouses are a part of a rental complex with 3 or more units, they align with the apartment classification and must comply with 11A. Alternatively, if the townhouses are individually owned as condominiums and the development includes 4 or more units, they similarly fall under the scope of 11A. Existing items 3 to 10 are proposed to be renumbered to 4 to 11 to accommodate the new addition of item 3. John, I turn it back to you.
We will now open this item for comment. As a reminder, there's a 3-minute time limit on comments. Once I call on you, please state your name and any organization you are representing. Once your 3 minutes is up, you will hear a beeping sound and we will move on to the next commenter. John Caparelli, please go ahead.
Thank you. John Caparelli, building official for the city of Santa Cruz and a member of the Calbo Access Committee. I support this change. The question comes up quite a bit. For townhouses, I think the misunderstanding is that the California Residential Code can be applied to townhouses. And so I know there's a lot of people that feel that if the structure conforms to the definition of townhouse, then the building code doesn't apply, and then therefore Chapter 11A doesn't apply because I can apply the residential code, which is obviously not true. Chapter 11A still applies if you have covered multifamily dwellings, apartments with 3, condos with 4, regardless of whether it meets the definition of townhome. And so I like this change. The reason I wanted to comment is because I'm not sure why we're limiting this to single-story townhomes. If a development had multi-story townhouses, this would also still, Chapter 11A would also still apply if the structure had 3 apartments or 4 condos. So I would propose that we just simply say townhouses with 3 or more. The old definition of townhouse in the 2001 California Building Code and prior indicated that a townhouse was a multi-story dwelling unit. And then in the 2007 CBC, when we switched to the International Building Code, the definition of townhouse changed to include both single and multi-story dwelling units. So it seems like we should just say townhouses to clarify that. Otherwise, I think this is a great clarification.
Thank you, John. Veronica, I believe you would like to respond.
Hi, John. This is Veronica with HCD. You're correct. I mean, if we follow the definition, it really doesn't specify if the townhouse is a single or multi-story. And also you're correct that, you know, multi-story should, but I think our legal department, they have to look into the language and make sure that we can just say townhouses, because right now we're gonna add a single story only, and then we're gonna look into the other part. Because again, you know, it's not just me that can make the decision. I only represent HCD. We have all the legal team that they have to look and make sure it doesn't contradict with any of the laws and the regulations that are in place. But you're correct. And I'll bring this up to my management.
Thank you, Veronica. Looks like John has a follow-up comment.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Veronica. I think if we put this change in the code, it really should encompass both single and multi-story townhomes. I'm afraid if it goes in this way, it might give some code users the impression that multi-story townhouses with 3 or more apartments or 4 or more condos are not covered multifamily dwellings, because the code says only single story. So I would prefer, thank you for pursuing that. And I think it could be counterproductive if we say just single story in the code. So yeah, that would just be my comment. But generally speaking, really glad to see that HCD is going to clarify this whole thing about townhouses are covered multifamily dwellings if they meet the definition. But I do think we need to take out the single story.
Thank you for your comment. Oh, Veronica?
Hey, John, if you don't mind, then, you know, I always ask you, can you email that to us? And then I have an email to refer to when I talk to the management and when we, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Veronica. To the Title 24 at HCD address? Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Not seeing any other comments. This concludes item number 2. Veronica, I'll turn it over to you.
Hi, this is Veronica with HCD. Let's go to item 3. Item 3, section 1109, 8.9, accessible electric vehicle ready spaces. So I would like to read the language for the people over the phone. 1109, 8.9, accessible electric vehicle charging spaces. When EV charging spaces serving multifamily dwellings include EVSE, at least 2% of the accessible EV charging spaces shall comply with section 1109A. EV charging spaces should be accessible, required to be accessible by this section shall be located adjacent to accessible parking spaces and shall be on accessible route. 1109A A 9.1 EV charger, where parking spaces serving multifamily buildings provide EV chargers available for public use, the EV charging equipment shall comply with the accessibility provisions for electric vehicle charging stations in Chapter 11B. So the reason, we had a lot of stakeholders express confusion between provisions of the California Green Building Standards Code, CalGreen, Title 24, Part 11, and Chapter 11A. And they requested clarification on the applicable accessibility provisions when EV charging spaces are equipped and provided. The proposed section is intended to provide clarity that accessible EVSE shall be provided at 2% and shall be located adjacent to other accessible parking spaces on an accessible route. The proposal also clarifies that EV charging equipment made available to the public shall comply with Chapter 11B. With that, I will turn things over to John.
We will now open this item for comment. As a reminder, there's a 3-minute time limit on comments. Once I call on you, please state your name and organization if you're representing one. Once your 3 minutes is up, you'll hear a beeping sound and we'll move on to the next commenter. We'll start with Susan.
Hi, this is Susan Moe again from Access Compliance Consulting. And I have a question. In that first section, 1109.8.9, what if it says EV charging space is required to be accessible by this section shall be located adjacent to other accessible parking spaces? Potentially, the infrastructure to provide that EV charging might be located away from where the accessible parking spaces are. So is that setting up a situation where potentially it could be difficult to locate the EV charging spaces adjacent to other accessible parking spaces? So that was my one question. And then for the 2% of the assigned EV charging spaces, are those assigned to the residents or assigned to a particular resident? So those were my own, my only 2 comments. Thank you.
I would like to respond to Susan and then we can with John. Please correct me and please feel free to correct me if I didn't understand right. So I'm only talking about the accessible EV charging spaces. And those, obviously, because they're going to be used by people with disability, they will have to be on accessible route. And they have to be adjacent to another, well, the EV charging, the accessible regular space. It will be the EV charging space that's accessible. So then it can be used by both if whoever parks on the other spot needs it. There were a lot of questions. Actually, we received a lot of questions because people they're really confused, you know, with CalGreen and Chapter 11A and what are the requirements of both of them. And basically, we only took the language from CalGreen and we added the language in 11A. Everything that we're adding in 11A, it's actually in CalGreen. If you read 4.106.4.2.2.1.1, I think, it does say that EVCS accessible space shall be located adjacent to an accessible parking space and meet the requirements of California Building Code Chapter 11A to allow use of the EV charger from the accessible parking space. That's exactly what I meant. And then he also clarifies that the EVCS accessible space, they have to be on accessible route, so they can be used by people with any kind of disability. And if we add, obviously, sense to Chapter 11B in adding the infrastructure on. Was that your question number one? So only the accessible EV spaces have to be next to an accessible stall, not all the EV spaces.
Yeah, my only other question was, the 2% of the assigned spaces, that's just assigned to all residents or assigned to a particular resident?
The 2% will be, so usually the way the calculation goes, is 2% of every type of parking. So if we have cover parking, if we have enclosed parking, then it will be 2%. But now we're talking about the EV. So 2% of the EV charging spaces will have to be accessible. And yes, if they're assigned to all the tenants, not just obviously to one tenant.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If you guys ever have, I'm sorry, John, any follow-up questions, please email, title24@hcd.ca.gov, and I'll be happy to respond.
Okay. Thank you, John. You have a comment? You may begin.
Thank you, John Caparelli, City of Santa Clarita. I am opposed to this change for several reasons. It's important to recognize that accessible parking and accessible electric vehicle charging spaces are two different types of facilities that need to be understood as separate facilities. I like to say you don't want the person with a disability who drives a Tundra to use the space for the person with a disability who drives the Tesla, and vice versa. And this code change it makes the mistake of mixing electric vehicle charging spaces with parking spaces. So for example, the language says where EV charging spaces serving multifamily dwellings include electric vehicle service equipment, 2% shall comply with section 1109. Well, when I go to section 1109, there are no provisions in section 1109 for electric vehicle charging. Section 1109 is for parking. And by adding EVs to section 1109, now you have this awkward overlap that's only going to confuse designers and other code users, as well as people with disabilities and other people that utilize these spaces. So for example, should an access aisle that serves an electric vehicle charging station be blue, like a parking space? If you look in Chapter 11B, which I believe handles this subject much better, in Chapter 11B, there's a very clear distinction between parking and electric vehicle charging. And the access aisle for an electric vehicle charging space is specifically not set in the code to not be blue, so that people don't mistake an accessible electric vehicle charging space for a parking space. Now, I understand the intent to make the spaces adjacent. There is an exception in Chapter 11B, which allows when you have 4 or fewer EV chargers, that an EV charging space and a parking space can share an access aisle. And I think that that might be an appropriate way to handle this in Chapter 11A. But I am opposed to trying to shoehorn EVs into the parking section of Chapter 11A. This is going to lead to people double dipping on parking and electric vehicles. It's going to lead to confusion between whether or not I can use an EV space versus a parking space. I think we need to rethink this and make these separate. There needs to be a separate section in Chapter 11A. I noticed 1127A.13 is already reserved. There needs to be a separate section in Chapter 11A dealing with accessibility for EVCS, which is separate from the parking section. Putting it in the parking section for all the reasons I mentioned, I think is not going to be helpful. I think it's going to be deleterious.
Thank you for your comment.
John, again, I'm going to ask you to send me an email with all the details. And let me look into it. I know what you mean. The reason why we put it in is because there's a lot of confusion out there between, how do we apply the EV charging spaces? How do we make it accessible? Where do we put it? And people with disability, they, some drive EVs, some don't. So there were so many questions asking, okay, well, can we put an EV charger in the accessible parking space? I said, no. What about the people that don't drive the EV? So there is tremendous confusion out there on how to apply it and how to make it accessible for everyone. So yes, please send me an email and let's work it out so it works for the industry, because that's our end goal anyway.
If I can just add, I understand, and I'm glad that that HCD is looking to clarify this. It does need clarification. If I can just respectfully say, though, those issues have already been thought out thoroughly and addressed by DSA in Chapter 11B. And the way that this is being handled in Chapter 11B has worked very well. That's been in the code now since the 2016 CBC, so we've had it for almost 10 years. And it's worked out very well, in my experience, for commercial facilities. I really think I would like to propose that if 1127A13 just simply said, when EVCS are provided for covered multifamily dwellings, they shall comply with the requirements of Chapter 11B, Section 11B 228, that right there would solve this. Just simply a reference to Chapter 11B, in the same way that Chapter 11A already refers to Chapter 11B for things like detectable warnings. I don't see why a reference to Chapter 11B for EVCS would be such a problem. I think it would be great, and it would make it so we don't have to reinvent the wheel. DSA has already done a great job on those EVCS provisions, and I think just referring to them would be a quick and easy and effective solution.
Again, let us discuss it. If you can send me an email, because basically what we did, because then we will have to look at CalGreen as well, because CalGreen 4.106.4.2.2.1.1 basically it says what we just put in Chapter 11A, because we're trying to coordinate the two codes, where it says that the accessible CVCS go to Chapter 11A, and then if you have the equipment, go to Chapter 11E. So that's what we try to put in here. But send us the email, let me sit down, let me analyze it, and then hi, Michelle, and then send it. We'll see what we can come up with. But I really appreciate your input.
Michelle Davis, you have a comment?
Yes, thank you. Michelle Davis with the Division of the State Architect. We are definitely willing to coordinate with HCD. So Veronica, I will reach out to you later this week and we can discuss.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you for your comment. Not seeing any other comments, so this concludes item number 3. I'll hand it over to you, Veronica. Next slide, please.
Alrighty, so let's go to item number 4. Section 1127A, Common Use Facility. I will read the language for the people over the phone. 1127A.1 General. When provided, common use areas and facilities in covered multifamily housing developments shall be accessible to persons with disabilities. Common use facilities include, but are not limited to, lobbies, toilet and bathing facilities, laundry facilities, community rooms, clubhouses, health and fitness facilities, game rooms, playgrounds, that's the word that we want to add, and portions of the common use tenant storage. All entrances, doors, fixtures, and controls shall be on an accessible route. Facilities and fixtures required to be unaccessible shall comply with the following. Number 1, doors, and there's no change to the paragraph, the text. And follow. So the reason HCD is proposing to clarify that playgrounds only serving the covered multifamily dwellings are considered common use facility, and they're required to be accessible and accessible route. The proposed language actually harmonizes with the Federal Fair Housing Act, FHA. If you look on page 1.5, 1.8, 2.8, and 2.9 of the FHA design manual. With that, I will turn things back to John.
Thank you. We'll now open this item for comment. As a reminder, there's a 3-minute time limit on comments. Once I call on you, please state your name and whatever organization you are representing. Once your 3 minutes is up, you'll hear a beeping sound and we'll move on to the next commenter. Susan, you may begin your comment.
Hi, this is Susan Moe, Access Compliance Consulting. And on this item, this provides for the scoping, but are you also going to provide some information for technical? So they know exactly, if you just say playgrounds are required to be accessible, what do they have to do to actually make those accessible?
That's a good question, Susan. Okay, let us look into that.
Okay. Thank you for your comment. I'm not seeing any other comments. So this concludes item number 4. I'll pass things over to Tyler to wrap up the meeting.
Again, everyone. So for HCD's notification sign up, thank you again for participating in the Chapter 11A focus group. As Veronica mentioned, we encourage everyone to reach out. We encourage everyone to sign up to receive updates regarding HCD activities. Instructions are on the screen for those who are listening in and don't have the screen readily available. Please go to www.hcd.ca.gov and click contact. Then you will go to the email sign up icon. Once there, you will complete the form that populates. Next slide, please. And if you have any questions or additional items regarding CBC Chapter 11A, please submit them to title24@hcd.ca.gov. And we want to thank everyone for your input today. We'll definitely be taking all the comments that were provided into consideration and further review. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.